A student from my Natal course asked me a question, and I told her I would answer very shortly. But it's been almost 2 days and I couldn't answer yet because I have been thinking about this question this for this long. But now I think I have an answer, although it's not the best answer in the world. It's the best that I can do now. The question was, how to identify colleagues from work. It's a student from my Natal course, so she is talking about natal astrology, which makes things a bit easier. Why? Because colleagues are people who are not who are not intimate with you. People with whom you don't have a special relationship. When you do have a special relationship with one of them, they change their status, as it were. They are not work colleagues anymore. They can become they can become your friends. So it's 11th house matter. They become your lovers, your spouses. Seventh house matter, but you look at it at in another way. Uh, they might become your teacher, your student, who knows? But as colleagues, they are not special in that sense. So when we are assessing the natal chart and the client wants to know how do I tend to relate to my colleagues, I would use the seventh house, not as lovers, but as other people. Seventh house. And if we are advancing the chart, looking for events, or at least most what from the possibilities of the natal chart comes to the fore, comes to the front for that period, I still think we should use the seventh house, but I think we should ask the client very well if he's really, or if they really are thinking about colleagues, or if they are thinking about a special colleague for special reasons. It might be love. They don't want to know. It's strange. I don't think it's impossible, but it's strange that a client goes to an astrologer and asks, I really want to know how my relationship with my colleagues in general will be next year. It might happen, but I don't think it's the most a common thing that passes through people's minds. So I would really ask them to clarify. Is there any client in special? What do you want with them? Is it love? Is it a competition? Maybe it's not colleagues, but one colleague in special who is an adversary or a competitor for a certain job, a certain position. But in, in to sum it up, natal astrology, I think we should use the seventh house. Why I keep saying natal astrology? Because I'm talking about a natal chart, and a natal chart gives us the relationship patterns we use, we have, we were born with. But if we are dealing with horary astrology, for example, horary astrology, it has at the same time a much more concrete situation, but a much more wider or higher symbolic need. We, because horary cuts a very definite frame in the life, we should be very precise when we are dealing with the subjects of the houses, and we should use the best symbolism available. because we're not dealing with patterns of relationship. I don't think there's a special house for colleagues other than the seventh house, not the seventh from the fourth. The seventh house, because seventh from the fourth would be the partners of my work, and they are my partners. Because I don't think the natal chart has a special place to put people that we don't have a special relationship with, apart from the seventh house, to talk about a different kind of relation. I'm not talking about astrology when I'm talking about when I was talking about natal astrology. I was talking about how the human life is. I don't think you have a different set of patterns in you that one of them geared towards people you don't know in general, or you're not intimate in general, and another towards people that you not intimate at work. But in horary, if you're deciding which house is important, you have to really think of the symbolism of the object. And if we think about the seventh house, it is the house of the lovers, of enemies, and of common people with whom we don't have a relationship with. Good. But if you think about it, these different possibilities, all of them have a level of choice. We choose our partners. In more than one sense, we choose our enemies. And we also choose who we engage with. We avoid people, even if we don't know them. We don't wait for them to be enemies or best friends or lovers to avoid them or not. You don't like someone, you just avoid interacting with them. But colleagues from work are not that kind of people in theory, in ideally at least, because you choose to interact with people or not in the market, in the street, anywhere. You choose whom you engage with, at least you should. In relationships, you choose your enemies, at least you should. But you can, even if you don't. But you don't choose whom you work with in that sense. In this sense, colleagues from work are closer to colleagues with schoolmates, colleagues from university, siblings, and neighbors. They are people that the circumstances throw in your life, throw at you, and you have to navigate your way around them. They are part of the daily routine. They are a third house issue, I think. And why is it important in horary? Because horary is not about your general patterns. I don't think there's a general pattern for colleagues in your birth chart. For the same reasons, I don't think there's a general pattern in your birth chart for puppets of your dogs, the offspring of your pet. I don't think there's a pattern in your birth chart for offspring of your pets. But if you ask me about the puppet, the offspring of your pet, in horary astrology, I would take the sixth house as your dog, and I'll count five houses from it: sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, and I would take the 10th house as its offspring. So while I don't think there's a special relationship pattern in your life, in yourself, that justifies moving around to find the best house to ascribe colleagues to. In horary, I would think, or at least I tend to think, we should use the third house for colleagues. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I'm almost entirely sure about everything I said about natal astrology. Horary astrology, that's how I think today, but let's wait until I receive a question of this subject to see if I change my mind. So that's it. Took longer than I expected, both in terms of how long I managed to answer it and how long this video got. I thought I could do it in less than 5 minutes, but that's it. Hope it clears it up.